Hello, I am Mantastic and Fantastic, and today I'm going to be discussing how you can deal with this new one-shot challenge 4 that has you actually fight a radar dragon at the end. So, depending on what your starter dragon was, you will either fight Gaia, Zeus, or Noah dragon with potential various spawns throughout this 20-floor dungeon ordeal. Now, this is the first opportunity North America has had to acquire a guaranteed radar dragon drop because Arena 3 is a gamble and you don't know which one you're actually going to encounter. So this challenge at least gives you some certainty because you know, relatively speaking, what you will encounter and fight. So this gives some peace of mind because you can kind of plan your team accordingly. And this will potentially give a lot of people their first radar dragon, and that is used to evolve the various monster point dragons that are being ultimately evolved, released in Japan, so on and so forth. So this guide will hopefully help explain the basic mechanics of the dungeon, as well as what to look out for and how to handle each of the 3 different radar dragons. So just be aware that this has to be completed in solo mode within a week's time frame, so your teams and strategies may differ accordingly, and there's also no duplicates allowed, and I'm going to explain that further. So which radar dragon do you fight? And this basically comes down to what your starter dragon was. So if you picked fire, you fight Gaia, water is Zeus, and wood is Noah dragon. In case you've forgotten because it's been so long, if you look at your name and your icon beside it, it should show the color. So Mantastic here is red, which means he will fight Gaia dragon. Fantastic is blue, water, so he fights Zeus dragon, so on and so forth. So the hurdles of solo mode and no duplicates. So obviously in solo mode you only have your 6 actives and you have to rely purely on yourself. So you can't use like your partner as a buffer for skill delays, which will happen in the dungeon. So you either have to have inherits to protect yourself or skill delay resist latents. Furthermore, you're not allowed to bring duplicate monsters. Why is that the case? I'm not quite sure, but it really cuts down on the viability of, say, like Kaede teams or Sumire's, who like to run many duplicates of themselves to form this looping haste system. In addition, you can't bring 2 Dark Callies for Raw Dragons, so on and so forth, so you have to make adjustments where needed. You can either use like a low cooldown base sub, such as Gunma for Kaede, and then inherit a Kaede over top of it. Technically it works, not as good, but you can use something along those lines, or you say use Awoken Venus and inherit another card. You can have to basically just use your creativity and see if you're able to inherit those other useful actives on differing bodies, so on and so forth. Like I said, in solo mode, you don't have that skill delay protection from your partner, so you will need to either have latents or inheritance to protect yourself because this Shiva spawn will wreck you otherwise. However, on a positive note, any cards with haste are actually able to provide more benefit because the haste will benefit your entire team because haste in co-op has less value, along with you actually get a solo mode badge. So you can either choose like the recovery, the health, or the bind immunity for your leader. So you will choose what is based on your team and what can benefit you the most. And largely speaking, recovery helps for a lot of teams because it will allow you to stall when you normally could not. So, looking at the dungeon. Now, this dungeon is actually a 20-floor encounter, so that is a long, grueling encounter, and it's much harder than Arena 1 and 2, and it's a bit easier than Arena 3 in my opinion. It has similar spawns to like Endless Corridors as well as Arena 3, along with some new ones. So you have to be prepared. You have to look at the dungeon carefully to see where you are able to actually falter and how you can circumnavigate or prevent that. In addition, you are actually able to stone for a continue. So say you make it very far in the dungeon and you died and you're frustrated but you have actives and you know you can win, you can stone to continue and finish off the dungeon. It is a possibility, and if it's, say, you needing Zeus Dragon for your Raw Dragon, this may be a good opportunity to actually use your stones, so on and so forth. So, I'm going to go over all the noteworthy spawns and then discuss the Radar Dragons in great detail. I'm not discussing every single floor because some of them are not important, and you can just use your judgment because they're either older or easier spawns, so on and so forth. So, on floor 4, the fire starters get sopped at, and you have to make sure you can deal under 200,000 damage per hit. I guess it's good that they put her near the beginning because you know right away if you fail. And if you have a team that has no damage control, you probably will have to rethink your team because it's going to spawn no matter what. Water teams get Xiao Wu Jing, which is basically a guy who has resolve and will kill you if you one-shot him. So the easiest way is to either bring a delay, a shield, or use a Heart Cross leader. Otherwise, it's pretty easy to circumnavigate. Wood is lucky because Thoth is pretty easy to deal with. On floor 9, this is my favorite place for stalling in Arena, as the Chinese Celestial encounter only hits you for 12,546 damage per turn, and there's no mechanics. There's no orb changing, there's no darkness, there's no other like binds, so on and so forth. It's just straight vanilla damage. And this is where you can stall, and this is where I would like to stall for basically any team, because if you choose the recovery badge, you can probably stall infinitely here. And this is where this means you also can use your actives liberally from floors 1 to 8, because on floor 9 you get a rest, if you may. However, after the rest, the dungeon kind of starts picking itself back up again, because fire gets Majedra, so it's pretty easy, to be honest. Just make sure you manage your health and overcome the combo shield. Water gets Shuten Doji, and he is problematic, as you basically have to bypass this 50% resolve with all these wonky mechanics. And you can do this by either bringing a delay, so after 5 turns, you can actually delay him, or you can actually just push your damage down slowly. Whatever you choose to use will work. You can use a poison. There's lots of different options you can use to counter him. So depending on what your team setup is, you may just want to wait for those 5 turns and then delay or poison him, and easy kill. Wood gets Zhao Yu, and it's usually best to one-shot him on the first turn before he puts up his status shield, or before he actually does any other mechanics, because on his first turn he does his barrier plus ambush instead of the 56,000 execute if you one-shot him. So you can basically either one-shot him on the first turn or bring a team that can survive the execution hit. Whatever you choose to bring, obviously make sure you have a way to deal with him, because the board goes dark on the first turn. So Wood gets kind of shafted there in a way. On floor 11, you all encounter Awoken Shiva. And Awoken Shiva is one of the scariest spawns in my opinion, especially in solo mode, because he will delay your entire team by 2 turns and then cut your health by 75%. Furthermore, his attacks are incredibly hard hitting, so you probably can't stall anyways. So you need to find a way to either use latents or skill inheritance to protect yourself, because he's a problem. Like, he's very scary, very dangerous. Like, you need some way to manage this, but he can be delayed, so keep that in mind. So if you have something that has delay and is protected by a latents or skill delay or skill inheritance, you can delay Shiva and take your time, set up the board, get your other actives up, so on and so forth. On floor 12, every player will encounter a Hera, a random Hera drawn from a pool of 3, and if you get Divine Queen Hera, you will actually suffer a 38,900 damage preemptive. So be prepared, either have a Heart Cross or a shield or a team with enough health to survive it. You don't know which one you get. You may not get Divine Queen Hera, but just be prepared for that preemptive. On floor 13, everyone will fight a Grimoire of varying colors, and if you're playing the monocolor team that is the correct color for the Grimoire, you actually could potentially get a Skyfall buff that will last for the entire dungeon. And that could be very valuable. So for instance, say you're playing Summer Miru, or Kaede, or whatever, Sumire, whatever, monocolor red, blue, green, and you get the correct Grimoire. You push it under 50%, it causes a Skyfall buff for the rest of the dungeon. So your primary damage color is always there. It's a great way to increase your damage. However, if it's not the correct Grimoire, you should avoid that Skyfall buff, debuff at all costs, because it will significantly dilute the damage or dilute the orbs that spawn that you actually need. On floor 14, there's a 50% chance to either spawn Satan or the ultimate Beelzebub. And Satan is relatively easy because you get a free turn at the beginning, so yay, you can set up your board and then burst, don't have to use actives maybe. But Beelzebub will preemptively change your whole board into poison orbs. So you need a board refresh, or some way to either resist the poison orbs, because Beelzebub will kill you. He is a terrible encounter, but we are lucky we get him this early on in the dungeon, because if he was towards the, further towards the end, you will have to lose an active and you'll have 1 less for the Radar Dragon. So this is actually good placing. On floor 15, if you are fire, you encounter Seraphis, who has 10 million health, 50% resolve, and lots of annoying abilities. If you're playing a team that has the capacity to survive his 75,840 damage execution ability, you may just want to try and one-shot him and not have to deal with all these mechanics, and then he will hit you very hard and heal himself slowly. But if you can survive that execution, it makes your life easier, because he's a very tough encounter otherwise. If you are playing a water team, you fight Hell, and it's not too hellish in all honesty, like preemptive poison and a preemptive damage. You're prepared for it, you can orb change them away, not too big of a deal, it should be one-shotted, no resolve. Wood gets Hephaestus, and Hephaestus can be a problem because he has 75% damage reduction shield, and it will drop off after 5 turns. However, you may want to just hoard all your damage orbs and just keep healing throughout the various hits that get increasingly harder and harder until his shield wears off. Then you can one-shot with ease. Just note that he has a 26,157 attack on his final hit before the shield drops off, and then he executes you. So just be aware of your health and keep your health high if you're planning to stall those 5 turns out. Water gets the easiest one, in my opinion. On floor 18, everyone is going to encounter either one of the 2 Fagans, with the light one providing a free turn to stall because he's on a 2-turn timer, and the dark one just hitting for 24,800. Lots of teams can tank out the dark one's hits, so you can set it up, but be aware that the light one hits very hard, and both of them hit increasingly harder when under 70% health. So just be aware of your damage if you're planning to gain a few extra turns stalling here if necessary. And finally, we get to floor 19, which is Deus Ex Machina, and she is the final spawn before the Radar Dragon. So this is like the time where you either need to like prepare yourself, try and have as many actives ready as possible, and obviously you have to survive her onslaught. And what you can do is either wait out the 50% damage reduction shield because it lasts for 5 turns, or wait for her to color change into a favorable one so you deal full damage. If you're, say, playing a water team and she changes into fire, it may be good to try and one-shot her right there because you're dealing essentially 100% damage because the 50% reduces your 200%, so on and so forth. So that's a way to burst her down. She can be delayed, so on and so forth. Just remember, none of the Radar Dragons can be delayed. So if you have a delay, use it right here. You have no other better time to use it. And following up with the Radar Dragon videos, I did post videos of each Radar Dragon. A lot of them, or most of them, were lifted from my Twitch stream, so there may be some audio issues, but you can see at least the gameplay. And I tried to upload at least 2+ for each Radar Dragon, so you at least get some variety, seeing different ways possibly to kill it, so on and so forth. But however, if you make it to floor 20, you actually fight the Radar Dragon. And congrats on making it this far, because this is actually quite the scary and challenging dungeon, to be honest. And if you're at this point here and you feel confident, you could stone if you do die. Just keep that in mind, because if you can't clear Arena 3, this is your best way to acquire a Radar Dragon, in all honesty. So, what you need to do is make sure you know which Radar Dragon you're fighting. Fire is Gaia, water is Zeus, wood is Noah. Just make sure you know who you're fighting. Like, you want to prepare your team accordingly. And the nice thing about this is that, unlike Arena 3, there's no Kali afterwards. You don't have to worry about saving actives for Kali, so you can just use active after active, burst, 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 kill, kill, kill. You don't have to worry about having anything left in the tank, because when you play Arena 3, you need to have at least something left in the tank to kill Kali, and without that, you're going to die. But here, at least you don't have to worry about it. So, yes, a lot of my videos, all my videos are played in co-op, but it is done in Arena 3, so I have to obviously be conscious of the Kali afterwards. Plus, the Radar Dragons in Arena 3 are actually stronger. They do more damage, have more health, so on and so forth. So it's probably the most accurate way you're going to actually see how to deal with the dungeon, because very few people have uploaded Arena 3 clears, Radar Dragons, so on and so forth. So I'm going to go explain each of the Radar Dragons in detail, because for a lot of people, this will be the very first time they actually have seen them. So, on Gaia Dragon, they void all damage over 6 million. Void is different than absorbing. It just makes so it does 0 damage. So if you dealt 6 million in one, you do 0 damage. Makes sense. It has 33.5 million health, so it's quite tanky. And it has 75% damage reduction for the first 7 turns. So during those first 7 turns, you can hit 24 million or under 24 million and not be absorbed. So keep that in mind. And during those 7 turns, he'll do 2 different 48,000, 200,000 hits. So that obviously hurts. And otherwise, he'll make jammers or skip turns. On his 7th turn, his shield will actually drop off, but the board goes dark. So that's something to keep in mind. Like on his 7th turn, the board goes dark, the shield disappears. Then you'll be dealing full damage. So if you hit over 6 million, you will be absorbed, and you're probably going to die at this point, to be honest. When he's above 50% health, he's going to hit you for 25, after the 7 turns expire. When he's above 50% health, he'll hit for 25,000 and then do 3 to 5 turns skill delay on every single card. And this will be done repeatedly. So basically, if you don't get him below 50% health, you're going to die because you're not going to have actives. You're just going to wear out and die. But the problem is, if you get him below 50%, you get a 500% damage gravity attack that's used once. So now you're like, huh, so if I leave him above 50%, I'm probably going to die. If I leave him under 50%, I die as well. Like, this sounds terrible. And if he's between 30 and 31%, he'll do a bind or orb block, and then 20 to 30% basically causes all your subs to be bound for 5 turns, or the boss heals, and under 20% he executes you. Like, there's no winning, it feels like, in Gaia Dragon. And this is where a lot of people are going to struggle, because Gaia Dragon is the hardest spawn for the 3. So fire people have the hardest time, really. So it is like a nightmare, because that 33.5 million basically is quadrupled to, what is that, 120, 132, 134 million. He has 134 effective health, 134 million effective health. That's a lot of damage you have to deal, to be honest. Yes, the last turn you are able to deal more damage, like 4 times the damage, because the shield is off, but just be aware that's your last turn, and the board is dark. So, it sounds like a nightmare, and in all honesty, I've tried different ways to kill it when I first started playing Arena 3, and by far the most efficient and effective way to deal with Gaia Dragon is actually kill him by the time the 7th turn wears off. Because on turn 8, if he's above 50%, he'll absorb your 2 colors, and if your color gets absorbed, you're dead. If you're playing a rainbow team, you're dead, so on and so forth. So you've got to try and kill him while that shield is there, and also during that darkness afterwards. That is the single best way to kill him. So you need to bring a team that can deal a huge amount of damage. You basically have to kill 130 some odd million health within 7 turns. With the last turn, you get 4 times the damage. So you have to find a way to do this. And if you're a water team, it's going to be even harder. So keep that in mind. Now, what I like to do in my case is I like to bring burst damage actives, so either favorable board changers. For instance, I use Saria plus Wedding Akachi to create a 1/3 heart, 2/3 enhanced light orbs. That will do spectacular damage, and it helps me chunk Gaia Dragon down. In my videos, I obviously play co-op, so I do that twice. But in solo mode, I will simply inherit a damage enhance, because I rarely hit 12 million damage per card. I have to get really lucky. So with enhance, I'm probably not going to hit 24. As long as I get under 24 million, I'm looking good. So that's how you can do it in solo mode, is you have an enhance with a favorable ward change and big burst damage. So in essence, Gaia Dragon, you need to have all your actives ready going into him or her, because it's a huge grind and it's going to be very tough to kill otherwise. Now, remember, any damage above 24 million during the first 6 turns, well, first 7 turns will be absorbed, will be voided, and the last turn when it's dark, you deal your regular damage, so make sure you don't exceed 6 million. You have ways, so what I like to do is, like, I like to try and get it as much damage as physically possible within the first 7 turns of the shield, and then in the darkness match enough just to finish it off, because when it's dark, you want to make sure you can kill it. Remember, you can use all your actives, so don't hold anything back. You also have to keep in mind you have to survive these 48,000 damage attacks, so if you're a Heart Cross team, this is no problem. If you're a tankier team, no problem, so on and so forth. But just be aware of that there is going to be damage going out. So, I've actually included 3 different videos of how to kill Gaia Dragon. I am not going to watch any of these, because it's weird, like, you're watching a video of me watching a video. That's weird. The whole article here you're seeing here will be linked in the YouTube description below, so please take the time to look at them just to see how I burst it down repeatedly. It's basically an issue of just using actives and bursting and saving something for the Kali at the end. If you are the water group, you actually fight Zeus Dragon. Now, Zeus Dragon is a lot easier by comparison, and he's perhaps the most universally easy of all the radar dragons, because he doesn't have too crazy or wonky mechanics. He voids damage above 20 million. Not many people hit 20 million damage per card, so not too big a deal. He has 67 million health, and he does execute you when he's above 90% and below 20%. So as long as you can deal 6.7 million on your first turn, you avoid the execution. And in theory, with Zeus Dragon, you don't need to have every active available, because he's not going to kill you right away. So you could potentially stall a little bit. His abilities vary at 10% threshold intervals, so you have to look it up to make sure you know what each threshold does. However, with that being said, it's relatively easy to stall between 30 to 40%, as he only spawns poison and heart orbs. So if you're playing a Heart Cross team, or you're having a tanky team with augmented health and recovery, that's the easiest place to stall, in all honesty, because other places can be tricky and challenging. So, with that 20 million damage void in mind, just make sure you don't overcome that. It's not easy, to be honest, so like, you shouldn't have to worry about it for most teams. If you're bringing a damage enhance active, just be aware that you may get voided out. Just be aware of that. Now, during, like, his non-execution phases, he's going to change his element at various intervals when he's above 50%, and he's going to do various attacks. You have to find the zone that your team is comfortable stalling in and try and push him down as close as possible, then go for the one shot. You have to keep in mind, you're probably not going to deal 20 million damage on each card, so what you can do is simply whittle him down to a favorable zone and then go for the one shot. With 67 million health, say he's at 50%, that's 30 million. So if you're confident you can deal 30 million damage, go for the kill shot, so on and so forth. Like, use your judgment. You have to, like, I don't know what every team everyone is running, so you have to use what you feel is going to work best and find the zone that you're comfortable in. Like I said, if you're a tanky Heartcross team, 30 to 40% is kind of the golden zone. However, if you're not one of those teams, you're probably going to flounder. And the key is just managing your damage and pushing him into zones that you can stall on. The zone where he breaks your hearts is a terrible place to be in. Get out of that right away because you never can stall, never can heal. So I've included 2 videos. The first one is actually my first my first recorded Arena 3 clear, my second one of all time. So I encountered Zeus Dragon along with scary spawns, and I was quite nervous and quite excited at the time because Arena 3 was quite new as well. So you get a chance to see a lot of the different zones because I was just pushing him down. I'm like, what am I doing? I don't know what I'm doing. So you can just at least learn a lot from this video, and the video starts, or Zeus Dragon at least starts at 25:59. Conversely, this is like a later video of my clears, and I killed it relatively easily. I knew what I was doing. I knew my damage output. I wasn't scared. I stalled in the poison zone. Relatively straightforward. So it's another way to look at a more calm clear. Now, Noah Dragon. And Noah Dragon is the final spawn for the wood starters. Now, Noah Dragon voids all damage above 5 million for 99 turns. Voids all damage for 99, voids 5 million damage for 99 turns. Now, a lot of people, if this is your first time and you're scared, stall out the 99 turns. I'm just going to put it out there. Stall out the 99 turns. That is a single and easiest way to overcome Noah Dragon is stalling out the 99 turns. It sounds terrible. It is terrible. But thankfully it doesn't hit too crazy hard, and it's very doable. You can easily stall out 99 turns on Noah Dragon. I'm just putting it out there. He has 23, or she has 27.3 million health, and when he's above 50%, it's going to absorb 2 different colors every turn. It'll bind 1 sub for 1 turn, and then it'll hit for a total of 13,087 when above 50%. So like I said, you can stall this out. Most teams should have above 26,000 health, so you can tank 2 hits in a row, use an active to make hearts if needed, so on and so forth. If you're wood starter, be prepared for this grind. However, you have to know that he will deal 1 attack of dangerous damage, survivable for lots of teams, heart crossing, tank teams, so on and so forth, when under 90%, under 75%, and 50%. Basically and he does this once at each threshold, and it can repeat. You will get the 90%. Say you push it down to 60% on the first turn. He will do his special damage attack at 90%, and then the 75% right after. So you have to be aware that it's going to hurt, and there's no heart orbs as well. Just keep that in mind if you're pushing it down quickly. When it's below 50%, it becomes a lot more dangerous because the mechanics change, as well as providing a 5-turn skill delay when under 50%. And there is pretty much an execution when he's under 30%, so that's bad for your health. Now, Noah Dragon, like I said, is perhaps the easiest dragon to stall on because, well, I need to change that. That's a typo there. It should be 13,000. But the point being is, it only hits for 13,000 per turn. It absorbs your colors most of the time. It's going to bind you, so on and so forth. So just wait it out. Like, honestly, just wait out the 99 turns for the safest clear. Because your damage will be absorbed most of the time. Your subs will be bound. It's just a nightmare overall. And it's just unpleasant. Like I said, when I play Arena 3, I stalled it out for my first drop at least. After I got my first drop, I started just killing it. I didn't care, but I know how the mechanics work, and killing it preemptively is much more risky. So if you are not willing to stall at 99 turns, I'm going to describe how you overcome his damage absorb and various mechanics preemptively. Now, if you stall the 99 turns, you can go for the one shot as long as he's not absorbing your color and you deal 27 million damage. Hooray. So, If you are wanting to not stall, you want to try and push his health down as much as possible and then go for a one-shot when he's at a reasonable amount of health. Now, for instance, if you whittle him down to, say, like 55% health, Noah Dragon's going to have approximately 14 million health, I'm going to say. So with 14 million health, you only need to deal essentially 2.3 million damage or whatever. 2.5 million damage per card. Yeah, 2.5 million damage per card. Very doable. Yes, one card will be bound unless you have some sort of bind clear. So just keep that in mind. It's very doable to one-shot Noah Dragon when he's at half health or close to half health. Just keep that in mind. I do not like pushing it below 50% health because he will start cutting your health and dealing huge damage, as well as delaying all your skills by 5 turns, so it makes stalling kind of impossible. Well, it makes it much harder, and you may not have actives, so that's a bad scenario. So if you want to kill Noah Dragon preemptively, get it close to 50%, don't push it under, then go for the one-shot when the color absorb is favorable and someone non-important is bound. I've included videos here of stalling and then preemptively killing Noah Dragon. If there's issues with sound, you can click this Twitch link here. If you want to see a video of 99 turns stalling and how to deal with it afterwards, check this one out. I don't showcase all 99 turns. I cut it out so you only see the last few. But either way, both strategies work, but going for the preemptive kill is a lot riskier. If you want to be your first clear and be safe, stall it out. In all honesty, stall it out. It may be boring, but you only need to do it once. So, in conclusion, this set of one-set challenge dungeons provides players basically the hardest challenge to date. This is by far the hardest challenge they've given players. And it will award you a Radar Dragon, so this is fantastic. For people who can't clear Arena 3 or don't want to clear Arena 3 or have been just terribly trolled by RNG in Arena 3 because they can't get a drop, this is your best way to get a Radar Dragon. And you can stone it. So many benefits here, to be honest. So, it is going to be tough. You have to do your research. Take a look at those videos in all honesty. Like, you really should look at those videos because, yes, it's co-op, but those are harder spawns, and I have a Kali afterwards, so I don't use all my actives. So you can just be aware of how you deal with these Radar Dragons. So let me know what teams you plan to use. This article will be linked in the description below, so take a look there. And like I said, hopefully this goes well for everyone. I will be uploading my own clears at some point very quickly when I actually clear them and record it, so look forward to that. So everyone in the meantime, have a Mantastic evening, prepare your teams accordingly, and happy puzzling!